Can you hear me now?
We have success. We have been unrugged by the
Excellent.
Musk. This is probably another point in the column for switching over to Discord for future calls. But
Yeah, it kind of works. It kind of works, and then when it doesn't, it's really freaking annoying.
yeah. It's unfortunate the industry just loves Twitter. But I believe the last question I had asked was about how the devs timing of Denkun and the current situation of testnets not looking like they're going to happen until after the holidays impact how the team is looking at timelines, especially since I believe audits have to be scheduled very far in advance and probably already are scheduled? Question mark.
So for Houston, we don't have any reliance on the Ethereum roadmap. So that's it's not a problem for us. The audits are actually booked in. Well, we've got two audits booked in for the 20th of November, and then we've got another one in January. So we're actually having three audits this time around. Yeah, so they're already booked in. They're kind of locked and loaded. Houston doesn't have that kind of like dependency. Saturn obviously does, but that will be later on. In fact, the audit market is actually much better now, so we can actually get audits much quicker at the moment. I think probably the bear market that's one shining, one silver lining of a bear market is that audits are easier to get. So it's not necessarily a huge issue. So even for Saturn, we can kind of like figure out when we want to do that audit and not have to necessarily book it in as early. So that's really good.
That's really nice to hear. Having the extra audits in place is nice, and only being dependent on the core devs for Saturn is good, given that we have some other things to work through in the meantime. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see if how feature locked the audits are, as there has been some discussion as it pertains to the RPIPs that we will get into shortly, and maybe seeing if that can fit in there. But we'll probably cover that with the RPIPs, so stay tuned for that. Uh, One other thing to mention before we get into the meat of things is Fornax is now employed at Rocket Pool. And I don't think I've chatted with you since that happened. So I also see Fornax in the audience. I just want to send some love to our most recent Orange affiliate. And I'm wondering how terrible of an employee has Fornax been. I'm joking. Fornax has been incredible even as a community manager. I'm sure he's continuing to thrive as a full-time employee.
Yeah, he gets paid now to listen to this Twitter space, so that's good. No, he's awesome. He's awesome, and I really think that if we'd have gotten Fornax earlier, it would have been better. But the time, and that was all on us. But I think the timing is fantastic to have Fornax and to have him as kind of. I'm trying to think that the best word. His engine is warm, if you know what I mean. Like he's hitting the ground running. He's
right.
really adding value from day one. So we kind of like needed that at this point in time. So it's really good, and it's fantastic that he can kind of play a sweeper role and kind of be go between kind of smart contracts and smart node stuff. That's been extremely handy. So no, all working out very, very well.
Yeah, it's interesting with Fornax that you can sort of skip that initial sort of training period you would normally have with a new employee, and as you said, hit the ground running. Nashua had pointed out some activity going on in the GitHub, so it's nice to see Fornax hard at work already.
Yeah, definitely on a few different fronts, which is really good to see.
So moving back into the more official bi-weekly, we also had the RPL inflation adjusted That was nice to see as the GMC and IMC continue to fund the many endeavors of the protocol. In terms of governance, we had the much hyped already voting proposals going through. There are 3 of them in the current set, along with the GMC membership selection. And so these votes include some pretty important changes to the protocol. So we're just going to spend a little bit of time going over these, what they are, uh, and we'll hear what the core team's take on these are as non-voting entities. Although Darian, I believe, is independently a voting delegate. So the first one of these is the RPL staking rework, and this is probably the biggest, most detailed one. So despite the summary that you might hear here, I highly recommend you go check it out yourself and dive into the nitty gritty of what's actually happening. The high level TLDR is that RPL expenditure is being more finely tuned to incentivize rETH growth, and keeping with the most advanced version of the protocol, insofar as rewarding LEB8s more than 16s. This protocol changes the reward structure from a linear scale where you stake more RPL, you get more rewards up to 150%, into one that more or less favors people who are RPL quote unquote light, who are closer to the minimum security requirement of 10%. There are a variety of other more nitty-gritty details, such as the inclusion of a 2-step withdrawal process, uh, as well as changing the parameters of how much RPL could be withdrawn. Previously, it was only above 150%. Now it is changing. So this vote already has hit quorum, smashed quorum to be more precise. It's currently sitting at 11,000 votes with quorum at 7,000 voting power, with 10 days left. Currently standing with 90% for and only 2% against. So fairly wide consensus so far amongst the current set of voters. Of course, that's not the entire DAO. There's still a lot of voting power that has not voted. And also, it should be said that this RPIP, RPIP 30, has been in development for a ridiculous amount of time. I encourage you all to read Val's GitHub entry describing the RPIP in good detail. It includes a list of contributors at the end of it, and I believe there's also a POAP now for these individuals. So big shout out to them. So with all that ado, how has the team looked at this staking rewards rework over the period of this last sort of like 4 to 6 months that it's been developed, and now we sit at the actual vote?
So I think probably like most people, or like a lot of, sorry, not most people, I should say a lot of people in the community, we're quite skeptical of tokenomics changes, particularly tokenomics changes that are born in a bear market. You're probably most skeptical of those, but Val has done, Val has done an amazing kind of job in authoring this proposal, this kind of this piece of analysis, and this is not just a proposal really. There's a huge amount of analysis that kind of went into it. So he's done an amazing job of making it as rich as possible in terms of the analysis and covering off different angles. He's also built up consensus, and that has been amazing to kind of like see. He's pulled in lots of different viewpoints. He's kind of tried to compromise and work with those different viewpoints, and really kind of build that consensus. I would say that this is what DAOs should be kind of about, is introducing changes. They may be uh, controversial initially, but then as things are kind of brought together in terms of the consensus, it kind of comes to a point where we get this landslide quorum. I mean, as I said, vote's not over yet. There's still a lot of voting power out there, but a lot of the voting power that would usually vote is kind of like voted. So yeah, I think it's very much I think it's worked out very, very well. I was quite skeptical at first, but kind of like reading through it, you can see the reasons behind it. It puts Rocket Pool in a much better position in terms of rewarding the node operators that produce the most value in terms of the rETH stake and all that sort of thing. So it definitely works out well.
Yeah, just to hone in on that idea of building consensus. This proposal has gone through many iterations, and there were Steelman versions of there were other initial conceptions around it, and it's really impressive. And I just have to give massive kudos to Val, but also the people who were involved in those discussions where compromises were made. That the the 90% approval we're seeing now probably is a result of just that, and taking the time to deal with people on Discord, which at many various points in time is very difficult. Dealing with text when people care very deeply about Rocket Pool, which is just incredible to see, and people hold very strong opinions about the things that they care deeply about. So everyone involved has done a fantastic job, and if you contributed, you should be sharing in some of the fruits of this labor. On the topic of modeling, that's something where we'll talk about later, but Nethermind has actually offered to build a kind of modeling tool so that the sheer amount of work that went into the modeling here could maybe be made a bit easier in the future. So while I hold an immense amount of respect for the work that went into this, at the same time, it's a bit backhanded in that it is quite difficult as it stands to create good analysis. And so I do believe that there's room to streamline this process for the future. But yeah, again, happy that this has come to fruition and that we're standing on the closer side to it being passed than the farther side. This one,
yeah, sorry, I don't see kind of like Rocket Pool kind of standing still. So improving the process around this, I say capability, but you know what I mean, like capability within the DAO to be able to perform this analysis, I think is worthwhile. It pretty much always comes out that we're going to be doing this sort of analysis continually over time, and it particularly adjusting to new there's new things come Rocket Pool's way a lot, so we always have to adjust, living on the kind of bleeding edge that we kind of do. So I think it's good to harness that capability.
Absolutely, could not have said it better myself. So there are a couple other things to be voted on. They include RPIP 28, which would allow the bundling of ETH and RPL for staking when a node is under the collateral limit. This is an interesting quality of life inclusion. Currently, there are only 0.2% of votes against. However, this would require some smart contract changes, if I recall correctly. Is that right? And if they would, what would the timeline look like for this? Would it have to be in the far round of audits, or perhaps even farther out in the future?
So actually, both of the RPIPs that we've been talking about, the RPL kind of rework and this one require, well, the RPL rework one. Some of the
Right.
benefits can be done. Some of the benefits can be delivered through the smart node reward tree stuff. But there are a couple of things like the withdrawal stuff needs to be in the contract. So both of them require some contract changes to deliver their full value. So in terms of that, we did have a big chat about what we can fit. Like Houston is just we did chat about it, but in the back of our head we always knew that we're challenged with Houston as it is, and if we add any more, then we would not be able to do it essentially. So those two things will be in the next release, not Houston. Now, how we're thinking at the moment, we need to do some kind of rejigging of like the release schedule. So Saturn could end up being two releases now, and we kind of try to break those up. Saturn was always quite a big release. We need to do a little bit of rejigging and figure out whether we'll do another release sooner or after Saturn. I don't know yet. We have to kind of like figure out the critical path. In other words, which features rely on what things. Saturn was quite big because it has a whole bunch of things in it that almost have to be delivered together. So we're going to look at those and see whether we can break things out and deliver it more kind of incrementally. But yeah, I mean, there's also kind of the analysis on whether parts of Saturn. So one.
Sorry, you said parts of Saturn would what? You cut out for a second.
Oh, if we also need to kind of like do the analysis on whether some parts of Saturn need forced exits, because obviously if that happens, then we will need to separate things out. But yeah, so there's a fair amount of work to be done in terms of release planning for that. But with like Saturn as a concept is still there. It's just whether it's going to be one release or two releases, and when they are going to land is up in the air at the moment. Once we get Houston, I guess locked and loaded, so that it's pretty much just ready or just finishing finalizing testing, then we can start thinking about Saturn and those kind of that release planning.
Yeah, Saturn is a pretty massive overhaul to a lot of core aspects of the protocol, including potential reworking of RPL fundamentally if we get mega pools as part of the protocol. So it would make sense for parts of that to get split out to make a more targeted approach when that is necessary. We have Whack asking in the Discord, do you think if Saturn gets split into two, that one of those upgrades will go into 2025, or are we still looking at 2024? Or a third option, is it too early to even tell that?
I mean, doing 3 upgrades in 2024 seems a lot to me.
Yeah.
Considering the amount of effort that we put into every one to make sure that it's right. So I would imagine that at least one of them will be in 2025. It also depends on that forced exits thing, because forced exits, we don't know when that's landing, so that we don't have a timeline for forced exits, so that also plays into it as well. So it's at the moment, Saturn is still in that research phase. It's not in the development phase. Once we've kind of like once we've got the vision a little bit closer to where we want, then sorry, Matt. Once we get the vision a little bit closer to well, as I say I mean we as in the collective rocket pool kind of want, then we can start nailing down when those dates are.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. It is a big question at the moment if forced exits were going to be required for the safety of it. And, depending on that, we could see a massive swing in the timelines for this type of stuff. But yeah, so that relates to RPIP 8 and 30 when we will see their full details going live into the protocol. But there is also one more, and that is the budget update. So this is a pretty straightforward one, and it is just the reallocation of RPL that once upon a time was going to the ODAO and has been going to the reserve to now be split more preferentially to the IMC. This is a pretty awesome one to see go through as an IMC representative because it will enable us to do some new things while staying in the green with our budget, namely introducing some more RPL ETH liquidity to dampen the effect of some of these liquidity cliffs and make hopefully the price token a bit more stable, but also expand our ETH across the ever expanding plethora of layer twos. Uh, Layer twos provide a fairly unique challenge in that each one often requires its own set of incentives to make usable. So being selective has been the priority of the IMC, but having a bit more cash flow to utilize makes that job a bit easier.
Yeah, they're definitely good goals to kind of like have that extra spend for.
Yeah, and it's better than sort of just passively accruing to the reserve at the moment. I think we had like 30% going to the reserve at the time, or when the ODAI was just getting sent there. But yeah, definitely nice to get it in active use. So also in the governance world, we have Gov Alpha, who's just been an absolute machine in the governance world and is a former affiliate of MakerDAO. They have a thread up asking for feedback on what should Gov Alpha be prioritizing for governance work to give back to the community. Really appreciative of Gov Alpha and their whole team for trying to reinforce these processes. As we were mentioning earlier, the processes we have around tokenomics analysis are fairly rudimentary, but that's true for large swaths of our DAO. So having some professionalization would definitely be awesome. And Gov Alpha essentially is asking what parts we want to prioritize. So if you want to contribute to the DAO and DAO governance, which you should, give some feedback to Gov Alpha. We had the GMC release its treasury report. Their last month had some pretty heavy payouts, but this next upcoming cycle seems to be a bit lighter. So yeah, if you're interested in the treasury dynamics, you can go check that out. There has been a DAO forum thread discussing how the on-chain PDAO should be replaced. And this discussion has been going on for a while. I recall Aragon DAO also saying that they had a new system that they just released, and that might be compatible. But it seems Kane is already pretty much done with most of the PDAO stuff, so that seems like a moot conversation. Anything new to add in the world of Kane's work with the PDAO?
Yeah, so it's actually he's doing a couple of last bits today, but I think he just put in the team chat that everything's feature complete now. So so from a smart node perspective, yeah. Well, yeah, until we find something else. But it looks like he's redeploying that to our DevNet so that we can start testing that. Yeah, so it's actually a lot of focus is being shifted to the smart node. So Joe and Fornax will be kind of getting into that this week and next week. So they're going to work on the smart node to get all those features through. I'm preparing like test scripts and that sort of thing for QA, and then or for quality assurance. So yeah, we're all kind of like lining up for Houston. Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, it's going well.
Awesome.
It's going well. We're behind on where we wanted to be, but we're still kind of like we're still pretty good. So
Right. Has there been discussion around the Security Council and potential designs for that, or is that something that you guys still want to have a conversation with the community about first?
no, well, that's in the RPIP. So you can
Oh, sweet. Okay.
comment on that.
Yeah.
It's relatively, the Security Council part is relatively simple in the sense that the PDAO vote on. Sorry, actually, I should say initially the initially the PDAO guardian will be the sole member, but the PDAO will control who has membership on the Security Council, so they can add members, they can remove members, they can replace members, I think, yep. And then the Security Council themselves, they can essentially raise a proposal, and when it meets quorum, it kind of gets instantly executed. The reason why that's kind of like okay is because the Security Council are only allowed to do certain things. So there's a few kind of like feature toggles within the feature toggles within the protocol itself. So things like enabling and disabling deposits, for example. So if we ever had a security incident, they can quickly contain things, and use that power to perform that containment, and then but then obviously the PDAO can then either reverse that change, or they can later on, once everything's okay, or the Security Council can kind of do that. It depends on how we want to do it from a governance perspective. But yeah, that's essentially the powers of the Security Council. The Security Council members can leave, but they have like a delay period. They have to give, what is it? I'm not quite sure. There's some notice period that they have to give. And from a governance perspective, you'd expect them to give quite a big notice period in coming off the Security Council. But yeah, that's the basic kind of premise of the Security Council.
Yeah, I think the whole ecosystem just had a pretty important reminder of the value of these kinds of security councils, with Aave's Guardian having to step in and shut down V2. That's pretty mind-blowing. V2 has been around for so many years with billions of dollars locked, and yet here we are with a critical.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you can never be too secure, and having multiple layers of defense is definitely important. Minas Tirith only survived because it had multiple walls.
Yeah, I mean, having a bug bounty program in place so that you can have that sort of disclosure and then fix it is definitely worthwhile.
Right, like if you're in a mutable protocol and you have a bug bounty, it's not really going to do much, because once you have the information about the protocol, you can't do much except white hat hack it yourself, and then even that's just a huge mess. So having a guardian that can pause the contracts while contracts are upgraded is just a much better system for all the participants.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely a difference. So currently, there's kind of blended roles, whereas with this new kind of change with the PDAO, we have much better delineation between the Security Council, who has that on-chain power, immediate on-chain power to contain, and then the actual PDAO that changes parameters. So those two things are now will be separated once that kind of happens. And I think that separation is good.
Yeah, I think Justin Drake might have been on the Bankless podcast recently put it eloquently that real decentralization requires separation of powers between disaggregated groups of individuals. So you have to have different people having different powers over each other in order to have real kind of stability in a decentralized system, uh, which ironically is what the U.S. government aspires to, but multi-party governments is hard. Definitely an aspiration, but we're doing well on our pursuit towards it. In other news of governance, we have Rocket Split being tested on Haleshki, but they are looking for testers. There's a forum thread about this, and I'm sure you can talk to Romana in the Discord for further details. You can also read up about the round 5 results and also give your feedback on the current slate of applicants for the GMC. I'm sure that will do people like Whack a big favor in helping them make their decisions when it comes time for that. Moving on to the world of integrations, uh, Polygon has gone ahead with a balancer to set up a new rETH pool on ZK EVM. There had been a pool already that the IMC and Polygon had been co-incentivizing. However, this new pool is also in partnership with Gyroscope and is kind of like a concentrated balancer pool. Uh, the IMC is currently reviewing this pool for co-incentives. However, the Polygon team has already gone forward and started to incentivize it from their end. So it is a fairly juicy opportunity there. The highlight, however, of these past couple of weeks in terms of rETH has undoubtedly been the launch of Prisma Finance and their stablecoin. Prisma Finance is a RAI-like entity that has that will only accept LSTs as collateral. Of the collateral options, rETH was one of them, and they had, I believe, a 60 million debt cap, which is a very substantial amount available. And because people were hyping over the governance token, which was essentially only available through this token farming program requiring an LST, rETH saw a fairly quick ascent to nearly 1% premium on the market. This premium has since started to come down some as the yields have sort of diluted out and the rush for people to looking to enter Prisma has dried up, as well as earlier rETH holders who saw the premium have started selling to realize some early yield. If you sell rETH when it's at a 1 year or 1% premium, that's roughly 3 to 4 months of yield up front. So is worth considering if you're in that situation. Uh, but yeah, it has been interesting to see the rETH premium build back up. And if we do get the deposit pool under 18K, that'll be another opportunity to start using Rocket Arb and get a little bit bonus on mini pool launches.
It's so funny how the premium is a feature, not a bug.
Yeah,
it's it's actually a benefit.
Yeah, it's in a similar way to how Liquidy's LUSD will sometimes depeg upwards, and then holders can like arbitrage that out and like get paid for holding a decentralized stablecoin. Uh, because of there's like an inherent value in something that has a proper decentralized backing. The market has a big demand for rETH. 3 years on the launch of the Beacon chain is still the only essentially LST out there that has a truly permissionless validator set. The values of rETH are fairly clear, and the market demands it. So yeah, I think it's natural that we at times get this premium that in the ideal world then becomes a huge carrot to expanding the rETH supply. We also saw the launch of Radiant Finance, which is a lending and borrowing platform for rETH. Make sure you do your own research with all these new launches, as protocols when they launch are at their riskiest state. Even if they're audited, these protocols don't really prove their worth until they've survived on chain for some number of years, really. And even then, as we were discussing with Aave V2, you're never truly safe. You can't be too paranoid in this industry. Lastly, for the integration side of things, CoinLedger is a tax software that has announced support for rETH, so that is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, it's not sexy, but it's cool.
Yeah. Unfortunately, getting the kind of boring integrations is pretty important for getting TradFi and more comfortable holding things like rETH.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a sign of maturity, which is good.
On that topic, somewhat of a side question: has the team ever looked into talking with Fireblocks or institutions like Fireblocks that sort of serve as middleware for institutions looking to go on chain?
So yes, and probably more so in the future. So we've had initial conversations with a couple of people. They haven't really gone anywhere yet, but Grant is kind of like chasing down leads and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think we're definitely interested in that. It's one area that I think. So wallets is a big focus for us at the moment, but obviously that custodians are the other kind of like player that would be useful to kind of get into. So that's definitely on the radar.
Yeah. Custodians that serve as like essentially wallets for institutions are a unique but fairly important subset of the industry. So glad to hear the team is pursuing those leads where they can. So moving on to media and marketing, we have had a few calls lately. One of them was the OpenUX call, I believe, with Mav, talking about the node operator survey that OpenUX is working on. This is funded by the GMC and is largely just to get an understanding of the Rocket Pool node operator set, the community, and do some data digging to better inform the DAO on future decisions. We had Mav also host a call with Nethermind, where they did a bit of an AMA and discussion on their proposal for a developer tool to help simulate tokenomics changes, protocol changes, and the sort. If you missed it, I highly recommend listening to it, but also reading the Nethermind post on the forum. It was very, very detailed and does a great job explaining what the potential benefits for such a simulation tool could be. There was also some pushback about, or I should say, some clarifications about the details of the proposal on the forum. So if you have questions, make sure to leave them there. As we mentioned earlier, tools like this might seem unnecessary, but they serve to, in some sense, formalize a more consistent data-driven approach in a fairly subjective state that exists currently. Last week, I joined Mav with the Equilibria Finance team to talk about their platform built on top of Pendle Finance. This was actually a pretty large community call. I think we had over 1,000 people tune in, including people who listened afterwards, which is pretty solid for one of our community calls. So big shout out to the Equilibria Finance community. It seems like they showed up in force for that one. I chatted with the folks from Tapioca DAO also last week. Tapioca DAO is a universal stablecoin platform. They have been longtime supporters of Rocket Pool on crypto Twitter, so it was nice to finally get to chat with them. Definitely recommend checking out their podcast where they talk about DeFi. I hear that, Langers, you actually had a chat with the Defiant recently. How was that?
Okay, so my cut out completely for the last probably 1 minute. so all I heard was how was that? So I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's totally fine. So I missed this. It seems that you had a chat with Defiant, who is a media platform. They do some pretty solid pieces. Apparently, they also do podcasts. Was not aware. And it seems like this was about staking centralization.
Yeah, I mean it was really a Rocket Pool thing.
Got it.
But we touched on, well, I mean, yeah, within the kind of I mean there was a lot of things that were in there. I mean, originally because we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about kind of like staking centralization, governance, and just staking in general, and all of this sort of thing. So there's a lot. Actually we covered a lot in that podcast. So to be honest, I don't know what because I don't watch any of my stuff back because I hate it, or at least I hate listening to myself. So I don't know what got into the edit, but it was a really good chat. And Camilla really does know her stuff, so she asked some really good questions, and it was a really good chat.
Well, the Defiant team generally puts out great content, so I'm sure it absolutely was a wonderful conversation. So if you're listening, perhaps go check that out. Mav himself was on a chat with Yearn, as it seemed like rETH might have made it onto the Yearn yETH sort of aggregator token. Unfortunately, towards the end of the vote, someone put in a fairly large bribe on behalf of mevETH. It might have been from the Manifold team, I believe, is who runs mevETH. But big shout out to the Yearn and Rocket Pool community member who had contributed the original 1 ETH listing fee for inclusion consideration. Better luck next time. yETH is an interesting model. Index tokens that aggregate different LSTs under the hood provide, in my opinion, limited benefit over just holding the underlying tokens. In some sense, it just adds an extra layer of smart contract risk. But hey, if their community wants to have us in their index, they are more than welcome to do that. It is a permissionless network. There have been some nice DeFi opportunities highlighted by Beefy Finance and Vesper Finance, and I'll also throw out Aladdin DAO. These are all compounding type protocols who sort of take existing strategies and make them just more efficient. Beefy Finance is one that I personally can vouch for, as I've been using the Optimism Vault since rETH started getting OP tokens, and it has been going quite well. So yeah, check out the Beefy Finance, Vesper Finance, and Aladdin DAO's content. CoinMarketCap has been praising the RPL token, given that it stood out in terms of its price action. Price is usually just noise, but it's been nice to see number go green after number go red for quite a while. In some funny side news, the Rocket Pool Twitter account got a fancy royal new follow in His Excellency Justin Sun, who notably minted 200,000 stETH at one point, but has been exiting a large sum of that stETH. Who knows? Maybe he's interested in more orange horizons, more orange pastures. Lastly, we have RPL was listed on some new centralized exchanges. As always with these centralized exchange listings, these exchanges are free to do as they please, but you as a user should definitely be doing your own research before engaging with them. The Rocket Pool team, I should say, nor the DAO has any sort of say in this process. So, yeah, no liability. Do your own research. Don't get rugged by fake exchanges. And with that, I think brings us to the end of the media marketing. Did Darren lose me again? Can you hear me?
No, I'm here. I'm still here.
Great.
All good.
Yeah. So yeah, we had a pretty interesting call today. The team is really gearing up for Dev Connect and these events, and it's going to be exciting to see the things that come out of that. Any final thoughts before I summarize today's call?
No, definitely. There's going to be some stuff announced over Dev Connect. So definitely look out for that. Yeah, no, it's really exciting. We're kind of heads down on Houston, but that's going to be amazing. So we'll try and keep everyone informed about the timeline for that. But yeah, it's going well, and we're pretty happy where we're at.
Great. So on today's conversation, we started with a brief discussion about the events coming up for the team, including Dev Connect and the staking convention that's happening just before Dev Connect. You can find all about those details in the Discord under the events page and on the Twitter. In the world of governance, we have some major votes going on involving the RPL staking rework, early deposits, or sorry, not early, but deposits while under the minimum, and a budget redistribution. Make sure you get your votes in. There has been discussion from Gov Alpha about recommendations on how to better facilitate governance. There are other posts regarding PDAO on-chain development, Rocket Split looking for testers, and the GMC's latest round of applicants. In the IMC world, rETH has found a new pool on zkEVM, incentivized by the Polygon team. The Prisma launch drove significant demand towards rETH, resulting in the current, I believe, 0.8% premium. The Radiant protocol also launched, supporting rETH Borrow Lend, and CoinLedger supports rETH in their tax software. In the media world, we had a number of calls recently, including with OpenUX about their node operator survey, Nethermind about the RPL tokenomics, Equilibria about their platform built on top of Pendle Finance, Tapioca DAO talking all things Rocket Pool, the Defiant with Darren talking about generally Rocket Pool and the ecosystem, and Mav with Yearn talking about their LST aggregator. We had a variety of pieces put out by Beefy, Vesper, and Aladdin DAO, all aggregators, auto compounders for different DeFi strategies for rETH. And Justin Sun is now following the Rocket Pool Twitter account. All clearly great signs for the future. That was our call today. Next week, I'm not sure who the call will be with, but it might be an interesting one given the team, parts of the team are going to be in Turkey. But make sure you are on the lookout for that. I'm Jasper. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, Jasper.
Cheers, everyone.
See you, everybody.